Godzilla is not only back, it's back in time for the undisputed king of monsters. Set in a post-war Japan, we find the latest rendering of the kaiju king in a Tokyo recovering from the destruction that leveled it towards the end of World War II. The surviving inhabitants doing what they could to piece their lives back together amidst the rubble of the world in ruins. Yet, it's a surprisingly uplifting story that is more than welcomed after the effects of the pandemic that wreaked havoc around the world. But worry not, Godzilla fans, this is a kaiju mayhem and monstrosity that only Godzilla could deliver, as it has been delivering for the past 70 years. Godzilla Minus One is not about Godzilla as a superhero like the recent Hollywood interpretations. It's not about Godzilla saving lives. It's about Godzilla taking lives without discrimination. This is all about Godzilla the monster. Godzilla Minus One is about a young man facing his guilt for running away, then facing responsibility together with the young woman who ran into him. And Godzilla Minus One is about the monster who was running through the world on a path of destruction just when their lives were looking better for them and everyone in their community. Reportedly, it took 3 years for writer-director Takashi Yamazaki to write Godzilla Minus One, and on a budget of $15 million, he, his staff, and all the actors involved created a moving and exciting cinema experience at just the right time when things have been recovering since the disappointments and challenges of the past 3 years. Godzilla Minus One is a fine example of what makes monster movies a beloved genre in the world of horror. Godzilla is about what makes monster movies a unique genre of film and stories that is actually the antithesis of most other horror movies in the horror genre. Where most movies in the horror genre, whether it be slasher, paranormal, or cosmic, the root of many of the best horror films are about the evil that human beings are capable of inflicting. Horror greats like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Shining, The Ring are but a few great examples of this. Godzilla Minus One, on the other hand, is about the best that humanity can be capable of when they band together and fight together in the face of horror. In Godzilla Minus One, the heroics are all done by humans, and unlike the heroics of the MCU per se, where billionaire tycoons, sons of royal families, and kings who fight to protect their people, the heroes of Godzilla Minus One are your average person, even rather poor people. While reading through the movie pamphlet that was on sale for the film here in Japan, specifically the interview of writer-director Takashi Yamazaki, he references a line in the previous Godzilla movie, Shin Gojira. In the film, there is a line that was said which became a big part of Takashi Yamazaki's inspiration for Godzilla Minus One. In Shin Gojira, there was a line that said, "Someone has to save the poor." Moreover, in the film, Shin Gojira, Godzilla as a commentator on the state of politics in Japan, critical of its dysfunctional government in taking care of the people during times of crisis. Godzilla Minus One takes its lead from Shin Gojira, but tells the story of quote-unquote the poor being the only defense against the threat of a giant monster such as Godzilla. Throughout Godzilla Minus One, examples of what Takashi Yamazaki calls the poorest frontline can be seen as the defense against Godzilla, like the dilapidated wooden fishing boat and the abandoned fighter plane prototype, fortified to deal the finishing blow to the threat of the monster Godzilla. Godzilla Minus One is a giant screen, giant sound, giant monster movie that should also be appreciated for its smaller, quieter moments, especially the stories of the central characters of Koichi Shikishima and Noriko Oishi, played by Kamiki Ryunosuke and Minami Hamabe respectively. The story of Kamiki Shikishima is a story of a young man dealing with the horrors of war. In clinical terms, he struggles with survival guilt after fleeing from responsibility that resulted in the deaths of his fellow soldiers. It's a burden with so much weight that it would be difficult for anyone, regardless of what their background may be, to carry. His is a story of recovery and being in the present to better care for those he lives with in the now. And the story of Noriko Oishi is a story of a young woman dealing with the horrors of war on the civilian side, where home and family were lost, but she strives to survive and live on to care for the lives of those in need in the present moment. Together, we watch these characters play surrogate parents to an orphan child, take on jobs in a recovering Japan, and rise from the ruins of their war-torn homes day by day, step by step. It's a story much similar to today's world, recovering from the effects of the worldwide pandemic. No doubt, this had a profound effect on the audience I was a part of on opening day. So much so, many in attendance were moved to tears. Part war movie, part family drama, part revenge movie, part monster movie. Godzilla Minus One is a culmination of 70 years of the King of Monsters that brings it back to its roots, as well as the roots of a Japan that navigated itself through many difficult times with its sense of social harmony, where each member does their part, no matter how big or small, to benefit the group as a whole. What will the next 70 years bring to not only Godzilla, but to cinematic heroic stories? Will Godzilla Minus One be a kind of trend-setting film in popular cinema? The Declining MCU films shows that big-budget films of stories about boss queens and sons of kings gains less and less favor to cinema audiences. These stories of birthright and abilities that are naturally born rather than built up through hard work are becoming less and less appealing to quote-unquote modern audiences. Godzilla Minus One brings heroics back to basics, as well as bringing back the Godzilla that started it all, the King of Monsters. Godzilla Minus One was written and directed by Takashi Yamazaki. Visual effects by Takashi Yamazaki and Kyoko Shibuya. Produced by Minami Ichikawa, Kazuaki Kishida, Keiichiro Moriya, Kenji Yamada. Starring Ryunosuke Kamiki, Minami Hamabe, Yuki Yamada, Minetaka Aoki, Hidetaka Yoshioka, Sakura Ando, Kuranosuke Sasaki. Cinematography by Kozo Shibasaki. Edited by Ryuji Miyajima. Music by Naoki Sato.